you explain to us again what SAP has done in the last year or two in this industry. So,
Many thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, thank you for having me here, and I found the two keynotes before very, very inspiring, so it's a hard job for me right now. So what I would like to do is give you a bit of an insight on where SAP is heading, but maybe first of all, some remarkable things that I've heard both from Jerry and also from Paolo and Francesco. I mean, the one thing from Jerry that I remembered was about identifying patterns, right? So really exploring what is going on there. And then the other point that you mentioned as well was about balancing interests, right? There might be interest from an OEM. You know, an OEM does not want an asset to fail because it might result in a warranty case or in a liability. So they will tend to recommend over-maintenance, right? And we heard on the other side that Trenitalia also kind of used these thoughts to completely change the approach to maintenance and to use the data that they can find out there and bring it all together and then investigating into how the asset system actually behaves and then apply that to the respective assets as well. So the question now is, how is that changing SAP's overall approach when we talk about Internet of Things, predictive maintenance, and analytics in that regard? So first of all, I think it all starts with the business and not just with technology. So when we talk about what is going on, then technology, I think, is an enabler, but we first should talk about what is really changing the business right now. And what we see is that roughly 2 years ago, the ISO 55001 was launched, and maybe just asking how many of you have heard about that? Not too many. How many of you have read the standard? Not too many. I would recommend this because it's not a 100-pager. It's really a management standard, so it's a question about how you do asset management at the end of the day. And depending on country and industry, I think it will tremendously impact the way we are doing business because you can a little bit compare that with the ISO 9001 about quality management a couple of years ago. And I pretty much hope that it's not just about nailing a certificate to the wall, but really thinking about a different approach to asset management. I think the unique opportunity here is that it raises the topic up to the board level because it's an ISO standard now. I mean, most of the questions, though, are still the same. It's about how to balance cost, risk, and performance, how to find out what the impact is for the business on what is going on with the assets. And then, of course, one question already mentioned by Jerry as well, should I replace an asset, buy a new one, or maybe prolong maintenance? Those questions, I think, make very visible how interwoven the different areas of information are and how you have to combine it in order to pull benefits from there. Then on the other side, there is a lot of new technology, and technology really understood as an enabler here. When we're talking big data, when we're talking Internet of Things, and maybe also, again, this buzzword, right? I mean, I was quite recently on the ARC Industry Forum in Orlando, and there were a lot of IoT presentations, right? But basically, it was just another means of getting data into the system. Okay, this asset or whatever machine can now speak Internet Protocol. So what's the big deal about that? And we could bring in data already years ago by other, maybe more proprietary interfaces. The manufacturing integration intelligence plus plant connectivity is out there since years. So there was always a capability to bring in data. So what is actually changing? And what is actually changing is the order of magnitude. It's really much more data than ever before, and it's maybe even easier to bring that data into the own landscape. But the real benefit comes if you not only focus on just the machine data, but if you combine that with the business data. Because let's imagine, I mean, even if you could predict this component, let's not talk about a big train or a locomotive, let's talk about a pump. This pump might fail in 2 weeks. under certain boundary conditions, you know. Same rate of operations. What does it mean? Basically nothing, not too much. Because you might have another pump right besides that is redundant to the other one that could just take over. And then the question is, what is going on that production line in 2 weeks from now? Do I have a window of opportunity for doing maintenance or not? So what I wanted to say is, you have to combine the machine data with what you have in the business system, otherwise you will not pull the benefits that are possible. And then even when we talk about you want to now repair this, you should better know, do I have a skilled technician? Do I have a spare part available? And so on. So it's a lot of, and maybe also what is the cost of repair? How long does it take normally? And that is obviously information that is more in the ERP space, and you have all the asset history that can tell you about that, right? So in that regard, I think it's on the one side obviously about IoT or IIoT, as some people say, Industrial Internet of Things, another buzzword. But I think it's much more about bringing together data from the machines with business data. So what another buzzword people call the Ot Convergence, right? Quite complicated term. For me, it's just, you know, bringing together data from the assets, real-world data with data that you have in the business systems. And so to give you a bit of a visualization of that, one of the imperatives of ISO 55001 is that what they call the alignment. And that is really making sure that what is going on the shop floor, what is going on with the assets, really contributes to the corporate objectives. And that is, of course, in both directions, because on one side, you should better make the asset system work so that it really supports the objectives. On the other side, of course, operating assets is always risky, so sometimes it's better also to bring information up to the decision maker's level because it might have an impact on the business. So at the end of the day, it's about balancing cost, risk, and performance. And that is, of course, throughout the complete asset life cycle. And what makes it more complicated today is that we have changing business models as well, and we have a lot of stakeholders involved. So it might even be today that an asset is just being sold as a service. And we saw that first with aero engines, right? They are just being provided for operation. We now see it with much smaller devices. I have another example in a second. So that there is much more information that also needs to be shared in that ecosystem. And that brings us back, of course, to the question about data protection and privacy, and also to the question on how do I standardize on content. So the question, what do you really want to share? I've seen cases that, for example, one chemical customer, they were insourcing maintenance. So quite other way around of what other companies are doing. Reason why? And they told me, if we have a maintenance provider here, and they are doing maintenance, you know, in our process factory here, then they know far too much about our processes. So we better do it ourselves because we want to preserve our intellectual property. So a lot of considerations here. So that when you use IT, of course, I mean, maybe many of you have that same challenge. You may have a service provider, a contractor. You know, how do you deal with those? Do you get them one of your mobile devices so that they have the information? Do you expose something just on a kind of a web portal outside your firewall so that they get the information? And so on. I think those challenges are growing because of the fact that all the activities are more and more distributed. We see this in manufacturing, but we also see this in asset management. And then finally, of course, it's about, as already mentioned, the combination of data out of different sources, out of the business systems and out of the operational systems. And today it's really no longer about not having the information, it's about navigating through data lakes, another nice buzzword. So I think I might raise the bar here. Anyhow, so then we don't talk about SAP solutions in that sense. How many of you have heard of S/4HANA? So quite some. How many of you think they know what it is? Maybe not so many. So let me try to give you in a keynote-like short version what I think is the main message here. When we talk about one monolithic system, formerly called R3, and then brought into SAP ERP, this was pretty much the idea to bring financials, HR, materials management, plant maintenance, and what have you together in one box. Unfortunately, at that point in time, the technology was only able to a specific limit, let's put it like this, right? And in ERP, and most of you, I think, know things like Plant Maintenance Information System, PMIS. I mean, basically, the analytics piece was in the ERP, resulting from R3 these days. But as said, limited capabilities. So other things were added on top. Like if you have a multi-system landscape, think about Advanced Planner and Optimizer, doing things like global ATP, global availability to promise, talking about extended warehouse management. And then, of course, all the analytics in order not to bring down the performance of the transactional system in a separate box that we call BW. But guess what is the result of that? You always have to decide what is the amount of, or what is the data that I really want to pull from the ERP and bring into the BW in order to analyze it. And unless you really collect the data there, you won't have it. And it will always be data from yesterday. And this might be really okay for just a monthly report. That is always the same. But maybe it's in a world where we talk about insight to action, where you really want to get data and directly discuss that and maybe change parameters for a simulation, might be not good enough any longer. And we came up a couple of years ago with Hana as a new, quite powerful analytical database. And we figured out that we cannot maintain this advantage any longer when developing software that can sit on any database as well. So basically what we did last year, beginning of last year, doing a code line split and coming up with a complete new product that is called SAP S/4HANA, and that is available both in on-premise and cloud. The good news about it is, and I think most of you are very, very familiar with PM, with the plant maintenance, call it module. The more or less complete scope with some things that were really old-fashioned is in S/4HANA as well, with the November release last year. So basically all the transactions, I don't know, in IW32 or whatever, you will find in S/4HANA as well. But we now have the capability in S/4HANA, because it's a completely new designed stack, that we really, again, bring together transactions and analytics. So there is no need anymore for a BW. Does that mean you have to throw it away? No. I mean, you have invested in this kind of technology, but the S/4HANA brings you new capabilities, because you can have now analytics be based on the raw data in the system without thinking about info cubes to collect something and pull it out from the operational system into another analytics system. And of course, that gives you some new possibilities really to simulate stuff, to plan for things, and then really to take the right direction. And then on top of that, we have additional capabilities with the HANA Cloud Platform as an own development platform based on HANA to complement this functionality. And that is, for example, what we are using as well for the predictive maintenance and service for the cloud version of it. And the other good news is the mainstream maintenance of the business suite is prolonged until 2025. So there is some time for a smooth transition. And I've seen specifically last year, but this is obviously going on this year as well, a lot of workshops that we had with customers really talking strategy here. What is the journey into HANA? What is the journey really talking about a new way of handling data and a new way of approaching analytics? Because that's the ultimate thing here. It's not about 20, 30, 50 new transactions in PW. It's about how you deal with data, how you make analytics happen, and bring it together with the transactional data. And then, of course, on top of that, and it is pretty much also into the Trenitalia case, it's about really bringing in data from outside of the business system. It can be telemetry, can be business data, can be any kind of data, can even be the weather forecast, because it might play a role in whether you want to maintain that or not think about an offshore wind park, right? And so the idea is really to bring this OT data together with the business information into the HANA system and then take the right course of action. And there are multiple use cases, and in the presentation of Oliver Meinker, you will be able to listen to a couple of them. So it's really sometimes just about optimizing on warranty cases. You want to change the design of something because of the failures that actually occur with your customers. It can also be you want to prioritize maintenance activities. And this is not, as said about, I want to specifically predict this asset, this complex locomotive will fail in 2 weeks. But just think about if you more intelligently spend your maintenance budget, going where it makes most impact, then you can really raise availability or bring down cost, right? And that is all about it. So talking about a couple of cases here, I mean, you heard about Trenitalia, and I always like this idea that you should start with a paradigm. So what is your business all about, and what do you want to achieve? Because it's not that you should introduce HANA because SAP has a new product. I think that is, I mean, technology is nice, right? It's a little bit like, I mean, sometimes it's fascinating. Everybody buys a new smartphone every other year, right? But there should be a question, what the heck do I do with it? What is it enabling? How does it support my business model, or how can I even get to a better business model, to a better state-of-the-art in asset management? And obviously, when we talk about a train operator, they want customers arrive on time and safely, and they have to associate that, because that's the business outcome, with the maintenance efforts. And so it's about prioritizing maintenance tasks here at the end of the day. What you can do with that, and we talked about it already, I mean, the one thing is this one individual locomotive, and the other thing is you operate a fleet of those. And that is, I think, applicable not only to locomotives or trains, that is applicable to a lot of things that we operate. And then you want to really identify those patterns of failure, and you want to link it to business outcomes, because then you see what are the patterns in my fleet of assets that I should better monitor, and where I should go after in a sense of maybe shortening the maintenance cycle. And what are the other areas where I can maybe prolong this a little bit more? And it's then finally about optimizing the performance of equipment. And that means that you bring together the technology, the sensors, and the machine data with the business processes. This is from a customer example as well. So at the end, it's about increasing operational excellence here. And what we should also not neglect, I mean, with Trenitalia, it's about the passengers and the cargo, obviously. Everybody has a customer. So from a customer's point of view, what is really adding value? And that's in the best sense of ISO 55001 as well, because it's about value that the asset should generate in the system. And then finally, it may also really change your business model. I mean, this is a quote from John Deere: moving from a manufacturing company to a solutions-based enterprise. So it's not just about manufacturing something, it's about providing a solution to your customer. And the same is true for another customer that was one of our very first customers on Predictive as well. That's Kesa Kompressoren, a German-based company. They today would tell you, we don't sell compressors any longer, we sell compressed air. And so it's a completely different setup, because now they are responsible to really make sure that the asset is up and running. And so they have an interest in bringing down the maintenance cost, because it's their cost. It's a little bit like when we talk about software in the cloud, right? Then SAP has an interest to bring down the cost as well, right? But the ultimate thing here is, of course, and that I think is a lesson learned as well, when we talk about a model like this, then of course it's not just about a compressor, because the compressor is built into a production process. So the question is, what is the level of information that also Kesa is sharing with their customers, or their customers are sharing with KESA in order to optimize the complete business. And that, I think, is about when we talk IoT and IT/OT and what have you, and business networks and so on, it's about collaboratively optimizing the business. There is a lot of more presentations on the specific items, and I think I'm supposed to give some 2 other keynote snippets as well this afternoon and tomorrow. But if you have specific questions, we have a lot of SAP people here. I would say the majority of my team is here, but also people from SAP in the US. And I think whatever kind of question you have, we will find somebody who should be able to answer it. And if exceptionally this is not the case, then we will find somebody in SAP whom we can direct it to. So use the opportunity also to talk to the SAP people. Many thanks.